It affects us all every single day. What you wear, what you eat, even how you feel.
We got it! Woo!
Wars have been won or lost.
Nazi Germany was defeated in part by weather.
Inventions devised.
The weather balloon helped change forecasting.
And history shaped, all because of the weather.
Weather truly changed history.
We're counting down the biggest storms and the most iconic, memorable weather events in history. These are the top 100 weather moments. We start our countdown with an elusive yet spectacular winter weather phenomenon. At number 100, thunder snow.
Oh, yes! 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 We got it, baby! We got it! We got it! Woo!
Thunder snow. It's exactly what the name implies.
It's going to be heavy snow, a little bit of wind, and a little bit of lightning as well, all combining to produce thunder snow.
Unlike warm weather thunderstorms that frequently develop in spring and summer, whole winters can pass without any signs of thunder snow.
There's nothing like being in it, because when it's snowing and that flash of lightning goes off, the snow diffuses the light in all directions, so you feel like you're in a snowstorm with a giant flash bulb going off.
For some, like storm tracker Jim Cantori, thunder snow is almost mythical.
I knew there was such a thing, and I've always wanted to experience that because I really grew up loving snow.
Cantori first experiences thunder snow in 1996.
Oh! Was that lightning?
All of a sudden, there was just this flicker of pink and purple. I knew it. That was thunder snow.
Cantori's greatest encounter comes in 2015 during Winter Storm Neptune.
Oh! Again! Again! That's a twofer! That's a twofer, baby! Yes!
This was 45 minutes of rock'em sock'em, flash, 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 thunder, thunder, thunder all over the place.
Oh my goodness! Yes!
Beyond excitement, should you witness thunder snow, keep one thing in mind.
It is a lightning strike. You could get struck by lightning in a thunder snow event just like a summertime event.
Yes! Again! That's a 3! You gotta be kidding me!
To number 99 on our countdown, and one of the most dramatic weather disasters in history, the demise of the German airship, the Hindenburg. It was the most famous passenger airship in the world, and one of the largest.
Hindenburg from end to end was larger than the United States Capitol building, including both the Senate and the House from end to end. It was a huge, huge airship.
On May 6, 1937, after a 3-day transatlantic journey from Frankfurt, Germany, the Hindenburg is scheduled to land at Lakehurst, New Jersey.
The Hindenburg was running late. They had had strong headwinds, so that had put them somewhat behind schedule.
It had also flown through thunderstorms. It had picked up an electrical charge, which charged the fabric of the ship.
As the captain maneuvers above the landing field, in the airship filled with highly flammable hydrogen gas, he makes a series of sharp turns.
It's believed that one of these support guy wires may have broken and punctured the number 6 gas bag, now venting hydrogen.
Hovering about 180 feet over the mooring post, they dropped the landing lines.
The ground crew grabbed those ropes, and because they were wet, it grounded the Zeppelin.
A spark jumped from the electrically charged fabric covering of the Hindenburg to the grounded metal framework. And when you have a spark in the presence of an hydrogen leak and an oxygen-hydrogen mixture, you have a fire.
In 32 seconds, that went from an 800-foot Zeppelin to ashes on the ground.
Only 35 of the 97 people on board the Hindenburg die.
The Hindenburg was definitely a weather accident. A pilot knows you cannot overcome the weather. All you can do is adapt. And they failed to adapt to the weather, with tragic results.
On to number 98 and Groundhog Day. On February 2nd every year, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania turns into Party Central.
It is just a day that people get together and celebrate the weather.
People are packed in there, and there's dancing and there's singing, and it's just one of the best parties I've ever been to, except for you're starting to party at like 2 in the morning, and the party goes till like 8 in the morning, and then you're finished.
People gather in this small town to catch a glimpse of the groundhog known as
Punxsutawney Phil,
who, as legend claims, has been making weather prognostications or predictions here since 1886.
Here's the thing you need to know about Groundhog Day and Punxsutawney Phil. He has a 100% accuracy rate. He's always right. The thing is, the president of the Groundhog Club, who's the only one who speaks Groundhogese, has to interpret what Phil is saying, and sometimes he might get the interpretation wrong, but not Phil. He's always right.
But what exactly is Phil predicting?
The groundhog tells us, are we going to see winter? Are we going to see spring?
And how exactly does he do it? Well, as Phil emerges from his temporary home on Gobbler's Knob, if he sees his shadow before returning to his hole, there will be 6 more weeks of winter-like weather. And if he doesn't see a shadow, an early spring is on the way.
You know, there's always cheers if it's an early spring. There's always boos if it's 6 more weeks of winter. And you think about it, you're there with a couple thousand people, all in place, wanting to know the same thing. What does Punxsutawney Phil have to say? It's really kind of a nice feeling.
At number 97, the Russian winter of 1941. A season that changed the course of world history. Known as General Winter, Russia's most frigid season has a long history of helping repel foreign invasions.
Russian winter, extremely harsh, extremely cold, unforgiving, dark, and lasting seemingly forever.
And in World War II, it comes in with a vengeance, proving a formidable opponent against Nazi Germany.
So this was the largest and most powerful military force ever put together. There were about 3 million Germans and their allies who invaded Russia.
Hitler's troops march into Russia in the summer of 1941. By December, amid worsening weather, the German army is in sight of Moscow. But as temperatures plummet to 40 below zero, the invaders and their weapons are no match for General Winter.
The German troops did not have the kind of clothing they needed. Their machines, in sub-zero weather, machines don't work well. And everything just sort of stopped.
Far from reinforcements and supplies, at least 775,000 German soldiers perish before the Nazi army ultimately retreats.
If Russia had fallen the way that Germany thought it would, they would have probably taken Russia out of the war. And so the Allies would have had to really conquer Germany almost exclusively from the West. It's no, I think, overstatement to say that Nazi Germany was defeated in part by weather.
Coming up on the Top 100 Weather Moments, an urban firestorm blazes through a hillside community. It's double trouble when twin twisters rage through Tornado Alley. And later, a brutal hurricane batters the Gulf Coast, creating a Cat 5 catastrophe. Welcome back to our countdown of the Top 100 Weather Moments. Now to number 96, the most famous shipwreck in history, the Titanic. April 14th, 1912. It's just before midnight aboard the RMS Titanic, the grandest ship on the high seas. She's on course from Great Britain to New York City, hoping to beat an existing speed record for travel across the Atlantic. It's a beautiful evening, strangely calm and clear for this time of year. The ocean is as smooth as glass.
On a perfectly still, calm night, there was no wave motion. And typically the way they find icebergs is they look toward the bottom where the iceberg hits the water, and you see lapping of the waves at that point.
For a week, other ships report seeing icebergs on the route, and on the fateful night, the Titanic receives a cable telling them of icebergs in its path.
The captain knew that there were icebergs, and they actually went a little bit farther south to try to avoid the iceberg fields, but unfortunately he didn't.
In effect, it is the absence of bad weather that dooms the Titanic.
If there had been poor weather that night, Most likely they would have seen it, and Titanic probably would have not struck that iceberg.
The crew tries to avoid a collision by reversing the propellers and steering hard to port, but it's of no use.
When it bounced or glanced off the side of that iceberg, you got the rivets hitting and popping. Pop, 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 pop. It opens up. It allows the water to rush in.
Within 3 hours, the unsinkable Titanic is at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Tragically, the Titanic isn't carrying enough lifeboats for all on board. Of the 2,224 passengers and crew, only 710 make it into the lifeboats. The rest are forced into the icy Atlantic. 1,514 people die in the disaster.
As a result of the Titanic sinking, many of the nations got together to develop a system in which they could actually monitor icebergs.
Norway to Iceland to Canada, the United States, all go now looking out for icebergs.
From deadly icebergs to a punishing storm. At number 95, Winter Storm Jonas. January 2016. Winter Storm Jonas blasts parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast United States with record-setting snowfall.
Winter Storm Jonas was so significant because the amount of snow that came down and how quickly it came down as well.
Over 2 days, at least 6 states see more than 2 feet of snow, and 14 more report over a foot of snow from Jonas. The highest snow amounts reach nearly 42 inches in West Virginia.
There was just cars littering the side of the streets. It just came down so fast. People ended up getting stuck. They get out of their cars and end up walking home.
Jonas proves to be the single biggest snowstorm on record for at least 6 locations in the east, including the spot where meteorologist Stephanie Abrams is reporting live.
We are in the height of the storm right now in New York City.
I remember with Jonas, we weren't sure if we were going to break that record, and we were kind of like on the edge of our seat. Are we going to do it? Are we going to do it? Are we going to do it? And the record was 26.9. We eventually did break that record, and we got to 27.5 inches in Central Park.
Jonas unloads more than epic snowfall totals. High winds pound coastal areas, and storm surge floods cities in Delaware and New Jersey. In total, 85 million people are impacted directly, and at least 48 are killed by the historic storm named Jonas. From ice to fire, and at number 94 on our list, the Oakland firestorm. October 19th, 1991. Northern California is in the midst of a severe drought. Conditions are ripe for fire in the steep, populated hillsides north of Oakland.
This is an urban area, Oakland, Berkeley, that has grown into the forest.
And when a small grass fire breaks out in the area, it's the beginning of a disaster.
It started and was put out. At least they thought it was put out.
But the fire is still smoldering, and by the following morning, the embers have morphed into a monstrous blaze, fanned by a notoriously erratic wind gusting at over 70 miles per hour.
Those winds are referred to as Diablo winds. Diablo, of course, means devil.
Almost 800 homes burn within the first hour. More than 150 fire crews fight the blaze, but it's overwhelming.
These are tightly compact, narrow roads with lots of big houses.
Mercifully, the Oakland fire lasts just 72 hours, but it's taken a heavy toll.
This was not a big fire as far as acreage, but it was over 3,000 houses.
In 1991's currency, the final tally in terms of cost, $1.5 billion. But in today's money, that translates to over $3 billion, all up in smoke.
At the time, that made the Oakland firestorm the costliest single wildfire in California state history. Now to number 93. Twin tornadoes, a spectacular but dangerous phenomenon caught perfectly on camera, not once, but twice. June 16, 2014, a tornado outbreak strikes the Midwest, unleashing dozens of tornadoes. In Nebraska alone, 12 tornadoes spin up, including the terrifying twin tornadoes that barrel into the small town of Pilger.
I thought it was pretty incredible to be seeing 2 nearly identical twin tornadoes near Pilger.
It was the most spectacular set of distinct tornadoes I've ever seen by far.
It's not uncommon for a large tornado to be accompanied by smaller rotations.
Little suction vortices revolving around apparent circulation.
But that's not what happens in Pilger.
These were kind of independently minded to some extent and carved out different paths, but close together.
It is unusual to have two that are of virtually the same shape and size and appearance at the same time, and both of them being large and strong.
Almost a half century before Pilger, during another legendary outbreak, the world gets its first glimpse of twin tornadoes.
The Elkhart, Indiana tornadoes in the Palm Sunday outbreak in 1965 became famous because of that twin tornado appearance there.
It was really that moment that we had first seen it and said, oh, this can happen.
While images of the twin tornadoes 49 years apart appear eerily similar, the results of the outbreaks that spawn them are drastically different. Thanks to major advances in weather forecasting, only 2 people die in 2014, while 271 lost their lives on Palm Sunday, 1965. Still ahead, tensions heat up when the power goes down in the city that never sleeps. And later, Matthew brings mayhem to the Carolinas. We're continuing our countdown of the top 100 weather moments. At number 92, the New York City blackout of 1977. July 13th, 1977. The East Coast is in the middle of a brutal heat wave when severe thunderstorms erupt around New York City.
In this particular situation, the storm just hit and the lightning strikes hit the wrong spots at the wrong time.
The first strike to hit the wrong spot at the wrong time happens around 8:30 p.m., taking out an electric substation on the Hudson River. 2 more strikes rip into critical transmission lines. New York City goes dark.
Millions without power, and it wasn't just an hour, 2 hours. No, we're talking more than 24 hours in New York City with no power.
Tensions are already running high. The city is facing financial crisis, and the Son of Sam murders have residents on edge. In the heat and darkness, violence erupts.
What is a very common event created such extraordinary results. Unfortunately, a lot of these results were bad. Arson, looting.
Over 1,600 stores are damaged in looting and rioting. More than 1,000 fires are set, and almost 3,800 people are arrested. It's the largest mass arrest in the city's history.
We can predict there's going to be thunderstorms, but how the lightning is going to behave within that thunderstorm is unpredictable. And as we found out, the way people are going to react to a blackout is also unpredictable.
We head to the Middle East for number 91, Desert Storm. When Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait in 1990, the U.S. responds with its largest military venture since Vietnam, Operation Desert Storm. Weather satellites play a vital role in this war that lasts just 43 days.
When you think about Desert Storm and you think about the satellite imagery, the knowledge that we were able to glean from that, it really helped the U.S. forces, helped the Allied forces in a tremendous way.
500 Air Force weather personnel feed crucial satellite information to commanders who use the data for planning targets, selecting munitions, redirecting airstrikes, and making troop movements.
Anytime you're able to use incredible satellite technology like this, we can put together a better game plan, better strategy, knowing that we may have to alter as we enter the field of battle, but every little bit can definitely help.
With the advent of laser-guided missiles, the need for clear weather conditions places an even greater emphasis on accurate weather reports.
Obviously, if you have a sandstorm, it's a little hard to use a laser-guided weapon.
Without the satellite technology to know where targets were and to be able to keep track of troops, it would have potentially been a different outcome.
Next up, number 90, the blizzards of 1978.
1978, and blizzards go hand in hand. We had a couple of them that are still to this day very much so remembered.
The first strikes the Great Lakes and parts of the Ohio Valley on January 25th. Wind gusts top 80 miles per hour, creating snowdrifts as deep as 20 feet.
This thing was powerful. Big winds, big snows.
When that wind is howling and that wind piles up that snow into a snowdrift, that's something that could take days to dig out of.
Lasting 2 days, the storm records one of the lowest pressure readings ever measured on the U.S. mainland, outside a hurricane. The Great Blizzard, as it becomes known, claims more than 70 lives, 51 in Ohio alone. Less than a month later, New England, New Jersey, and New York are pounded by the nor'easter blizzard, bringing great urban areas to a standstill.
This also had strong winds. Hefty snows. We were measuring it in 4 feet, small children's size.
Many underestimate the severity of the storm and find themselves caught out on the roads.
They had to actually abandon their cars because they couldn't go anywhere.
Power is lost for over a week in some areas. And along the Massachusetts coast, high tides and storm surge flood cities.
Unfortunately, with the blizzard in New England, we had a number of deaths. It was over 50 people died.
Coming up, it's danger in the dark as campers battle an early morning flash flood. And extremely rare types of tornadoes make for an unforgettable night in Nebraska. Welcome back to the Top 100 Weather Moments. A countdown of the most iconic storms, influential inventions, and memorable weather events in history. We continue with number 89, a raging flash flood that swamps a campground in Arkansas. June 11th, 2010, about 200 people are staying at the remote Albert Pike campground along the banks of the Little Missouri River.
One of the things about being out at a campground in a remote location is you're trying to separate yourself from the hustle and bustle of the busy everyday world, but that puts you a little bit more at peril.
Sometime after midnight, a heavy thunderstorm rolls into the area.
It was a tremendous amount of rain, probably about 8 inches falling in a very short duration. That heavy rain then flowed into the Little Missouri River, which then rose about 20 feet.
In a flash, the river tumbles over its banks, flooding the campground.
They caught most of the campers off guard. Water was said to be 13 feet deep at the campground, and they had to try to scramble to escape and run to safety.
The flood is so violent it smashes cabins and tents, overturns RVs, and ripped the asphalt off the road. Tragically, many campers are swept away by the raging water.
20 people lost their lives that day, and some 60 more were rescued.
When the floodwaters finally recede, the entire campground is in ruin.
This many years later, the site is still unusable for overnight campers.
Number 88 takes us to a small town battered and bruised during the night of the Twisters. Grand Island, Nebraska, right in the heart of Tornado Alley.
Tornado Alley is a nickname given to the middle of the country, really from Texas all the way up to the Dakotas, due to their frequent amount of tornadoes they get each spring and summer.
Even in this area, all too familiar with violent tornadoes, June 3rd, 1980 is legendary.
On this day, there was a stalled front, a stationary front across the region that had a little bit of colliding air masses and a little bit of upper air disturbance to give a little bit of trigger for severe weather formation.
This was a powerhouse supercell thunderstorm. Popped down one tornado after another, and we're talking violent tornadoes here.
At 8:45 p.m., an F3 tornado kicks off an onslaught that lasts almost 3 hours.
There were 7 tornadoes on this night of the Twisters, and they didn't take straight paths. Sometimes a tornado looped around and went back and hit the same location.
Grand Island is under siege. 2 more tornadoes hit at 9 and 9:05 p.m. Both are rare anticyclonic twisters. The second is an F3. It injures 40. Incredibly, the 4th tornado is also anticyclonic.
More than 99% of the tornadoes in the northern hemisphere rotate counterclockwise, so it's pretty unusual to have 1, let alone 3, that rotate the wrong way.
The catastrophic night continues with the most powerful tornado, a 1,000-yard wide F4 that kills 3.
It looked like a bomb had hit it. The businesses were gone. The trailer park that had been there was gone.
Next comes an F2, before the 7th and final tornado rolls through Grand Island at 10:45. The infamous Night of the Twisters kills 5 and injures some 200 people.
The time of day it happened, where it happened, it was night, how many people were impacted, the anticyclonic tornadoes and the cluster of violent tornadoes. It was an incredibly distinct event.
For number 87, we're in Florida for the heartbreaking Challenger disaster. It's January 28th, 1986. President Ronald Reagan is preparing to deliver his State of the Union address. This evening, he's planning to talk to a surprise guest, school teacher and astronaut Krista McAuliffe, who will be launching into space on board the Shuttle Challenger.
Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
But a tragedy changes his plan. A tragedy born from the effects of weather on a piece of rubber.
Challenger, go with throttle up. Challenger, go with throttle up.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
It was obvious very quickly to those of us watching this that something was gravely, gravely wrong.
All 7 astronauts die in the explosion. But what goes wrong? What really dooms the launch of Challenger?
The night before Challenger, temperatures had dipped into the 20s, and at launch, I think we were in the mid-30s. This doesn't play well with some of the engineering that is involved in a space shuttle.
In particular, it doesn't play well with 2 rubber O-rings. The O-rings seal joints between cells in the solid fuel boosters, forcing gases safely down and out of the rocket.
Those O-rings are engineered to be pliable or resilient down to certain temperatures, but the colder it gets, the less resilient they got.
NASA knows about the temperature limitations of the O-rings and calls outside engineers to ask if it's safe to launch.
Who were unanimous? Absolutely not. Do not launch. NASA took its chances.
In the cold, the O-rings fail. Hot gases start to leak through the damaged joints before they are temporarily sealed by burning fuel. Then, there is a second unforeseen act of nature.
As the shuttle reached altitude, it was encountering quite a bit of wind shear as well.
It flexes the solid rocket booster and breaks the seal. Now, flame actually starts coming out the gap, and then it's a matter of a minute, and the system is gone. Weather was the beginning and the end of the problem that caused the loss of the Challenger that day.
Instead of giving his State of the Union address, President Reagan mourns the loss of 7 American heroes.
We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye, and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
From a hugely complex machine to a simple but groundbreaking invention. At 86, the umbrella. The origin of the umbrella goes back some 4,000 years, when they were used by rulers of ancient civilizations.
So the word umbrella comes from the Latin term umbra, which means shade.
You know, it was originally invented to protect you from the sun, so it wasn't so blazing hot, to protect you from burning your skin and just keep you a little bit cooler on those hot days.
The Chinese were the first to wax these sun parasols, making them waterproof, giving them a totally new and different purpose.
Protecting you from the rain and any kind of other type of weather.
By the 17th century, the umbrella had evolved as a popular fashion accessory in France for women only.
I mean, and who doesn't want an umbrella to accessorize with a little bit, right?
That changed when Jonas Hanway decided he and his gender had suffered one London rainstorm too many.
He religiously carried an umbrella. He took a lot of ridicule, but you know what happened? Eventually, it caught on.
Those heavy downpours, you know, you don't want to walk into work or to your friend's place or to a party absolutely soaking wet waterlogged.
Originally referred to as the Hanway, the umbrella was first sold by James Smith & Sons in London, England in 1830. Today, the umbrella is used by men, women, and children the world over. China meets this global demand, exporting more than 1 billion umbrellas each and every year.
So what would the world be like without umbrellas? I think there'd be a lot more angry people, a lot more wet people. We'd be drenched when it rained. I'd say the invention of the umbrella is pretty important.
Coming up, a wildfire goes beast mode and evacuees feel the heat. It's double trouble for Florida as Cat 5 monsters bear down on the Sunshine State. And is there such a thing as a good tornado? Welcome back to the Top 100 Weather Moments. Now we're moving on to number 85 on our countdown, Hurricane Matthew.
It was pretty scary because we hadn't seen a Category 5 storm in quite some time.
September 29th, 2016. Matthew becomes a Cat 1 hurricane off the coast of Venezuela. Then it explodes, rapidly intensifying in the warm, welcome waters of the Caribbean.
The warmer the ocean temperature, the more energy they're able to take up.
Rapid intensification is officially declared when maximum sustained winds increase by at least 35 miles per hour, or about 2 Saffir-Simpson wind scale categories in 24 hours. Research shows that roughly 2 out of 3 hurricanes, 8 out of 10 Cat 3 or stronger hurricanes, and all Category 4 and 5 hurricanes undergo rapid intensification at least once during their lifetime.
In about a 24-hour period, it almost doubled in strength.
As Matthew turns north, winds hit 160 miles per hour, making it the first Cat 5 hurricane in the Caribbean in 9 years.
They unfortunately took the brunt of a very powerful Category 4 hurricane.
The storm kills more than 500 people in Haiti. But Matthew isn't finished yet. It tracks ominously towards the U.S. mainland.
It looked like Matthew could be the worst-case scenario with a very powerful hurricane raking the coastline all the way from Florida to the mid-Atlantic. So it gave us a lot of stress.
Matthew parallels the southeast coast for a nail-biting 36 hours.
If that storm had taken the track over Florida that it was anticipated, it would have been devastating.
Florida avoids a worst-case scenario. However, it's a different story in the Carolinas. On October 8th, Matthew makes landfall in South Carolina as a Cat 1. In North Carolina, the hurricane brings 19 inches of rain to some inland areas.
The level of flooding that happened in North Carolina was catastrophic. And what was even more heartbreaking is that so many people that were affected by the flooding were there to escape the coastal impacts.
In total, the hurricane kills more than 600 people, making it the deadliest since 2005. Next up, number 84, a Canadian catastrophe, the Fort McMurray wildfire.
El Nino helped to set the stage for this because it led to a very dry fall and winter.
By spring 2016, the unusually light snowpack has already melted around the town of Fort McMurray, nestled in the forests of northeastern Alberta, Canada.
That allows these fires to quickly take off once they start.
And that is what happens on May 1st. About 10 miles southwest of Fort McMurray, a fire breaks out in an area of remote forest. Fueled by dried vegetation and driven by high winds, the blaze is swept along.
April and May are the windiest times of the year in Western Canada. And the days leading up to the fire, the winds were somewhere around 18 to 20 miles per hour and went above that as the fire started.
Within 72 hours, the fire is on the outskirts of Fort McMurray. 88,000 residents flee their homes, making it the largest evacuation in Alberta's history. But many leave it too late. Traffic backs up and drivers get dangerously close to the inferno.
It was real bad because, the flames are right next to the road. You'd see embers burning the front lawns of people's homes.
The fire sweeps through town, destroying some 2,400 buildings. But the nightmare is just beginning. Although the blaze is declared under control by August 2nd, it continues to smolder underground.
This fire wasn't contained fully for 15 months, and it burned 1.5 million acres.
Damages reach $7.5 billion US. It's the costliest fire in Canadian history and earns a notorious nickname.
The Fort McMurray fire across Canada is known as the Beast to the people who live in that country.
It's back to the U.S. for number 83 and the blistering Chicago heat wave. Mid-July 1995, and Chicago, Illinois is simmering.
With the Chicago heat wave of 1995, temperatures peaked at about 104 during the day. But at night, that's the silent killer when temperatures are still in the 80s.
With humidity factored in, temperatures are in triple digits for 5 straight days, creating a hell on earth.
There was no relief, no showers or thunderstorms to drop their temperature even a little bit.
The pavement of the city, the buildings, all these are dark colors. They hold on to the heat and only slowly release it at night.
As transformers blow, 49,000 people lose electricity and the cooling power of air conditioning. Fear of crime stops many opening their doors and windows, ramping up the temperature inside.
It's almost like giving yourself a fever, right? You're cooking yourself if your body can't cool itself down.
The heat wave claims the lives of more than 700 people, making it one of the deadliest hot spells in U.S. history.
Heat is the #1 killer. It doesn't discriminate.
Coming up, the weather event that halted an army and saved a nation. Welcome back to the Top 100 Weather Moments. For number 82, we're heading to Florida's Gulf Coast and the record-setting Hurricane Michael. With sustained winds of over 155 miles per hour, Category 5 is the most powerful classification of hurricanes. In recorded history, only 4 have ever made landfall on the U.S. mainland.
Labor Day hurricane of 1935, Cat 5. Camille, 1969, Cat 5. Andrew, eventually upgraded to Cat 5, 1992. And of course, Michael, which was Cat 5, our most recent one, and also our strongest hurricane to ever come into the Florida Panhandle.
2018, the Atlantic hurricane season is deceivingly quiet in Florida. That is until October 7th, when conditions in the Gulf of Mexico are suddenly ripe. A tropical storm forms off the Yucatan Peninsula and tracks towards Florida. They name it Michael.
That's the danger zone in October. In fact, more hurricanes have hit the state of Florida in October than any other month.
While many evacuate ahead of Michael, in Mexico Beach, Nate Odom decides to ride out the hurricane in an oceanfront condo with his family.
By the time we realized how bad it was, we needed to focus more on just staying safe rather than getting caught out on the road. We were very confident in the structure we were in, so it's just a matter of just getting through it, really.
On October 9th, Michael becomes a Category 3 major hurricane and keeps getting stronger. Before making landfall the next day, its winds are clocked at more than 155 miles per hour. It's a Cat 5 buzzsaw.
It blew so hard, the rain, it really almost looked like somebody turned the lights on outside. I mean, it just got white and you couldn't see anything.
The fact that this thing was intensifying, and okay, ooh, we got a Cat 2, ooh, we got a Cat 3, 4, 5. It was a scary storm.
Making it even scarier, the massive storm surge of up to 15 feet that engulfs Mexico Beach.
Historically, storm surge is the deadliest hurricane hazard of all. It has taken more lives than any other hurricane hazard.
As Michael's devastating surge pounds their condo, Nate Odom's family records the scene on their cell phones.
Oh, this is crazy.
One minute it was a lot of water and a lot of wind, and the next minute you just had a town destroyed all around you. And that happened probably within a 20-30 minute period. That final knockout punch was that surge that came in that kind of ended it for a lot of these structures that had just couldn't take it anymore.
By late afternoon, Michael finally passes through.
When you say catastrophic, it's not over describing what happened here. I mean, it took it all. This town's gone.
It's directly responsible for 16 deaths in the U.S., 3 in or near Mexico Beach. The estimated cost, $25 billion. Now to number 81, and the tornado that blew away British troops and saved the nation's capital.
This was an event that in American history looms large.
Some call it the Second War of Independence. And in 1814, the U.S. and Britain are in armed conflict over shipping rights. In late August, British soldiers are just 7 miles from the White House. They have one mission: to seize the capital city.
On August 24th, 1814, at the Battle of Bladensburg, Maryland, the British overwhelmed a smaller American force, and they actually marched on Washington, D.C. Now, that was the last time that a foreign military power has occupied the United States Capitol.
The next day, in 100-degree heat, the British show the Capitol no mercy.
In retaliation of the Americans having burned and destroyed houses, the British decided to burn several of the American public buildings, like the Capitol, like what they call the Executive Mansion, which is, of course, now the White House.
For the Americans, it's looking dire, but they'll soon find salvation from an unlikely source: Mother Nature.
Washingtonians then and now were used to downpours in the summertime in the afternoons, but this was different. The Americans could see that it got dark as pitch in the middle of the day.
Given its small size, tornadoes aren't common in Washington. In fact, only 8 have ever been recorded in the Capitol. The first strikes right in the midst of the attack.
This may very well have been a combination of a tornado and a derecho, or at least some thunderstorm complex that had a tornado on its leading edge and then moved in with a more long-lived event afterwards.
The Americans took cover, the Brits did not. They were literally on Constitution Avenue in formation when it began to rain.
It's estimated the tornado that took on the British was a powerful EF3, packing winds up to 165 miles per hour.
The wind was so violent, and the Brits were right in the middle of it. Some of them threw themselves on the ground. Some of them tried to take shelter in buildings that then collapsed on top of them. As I said, this went on for about 2 hours. It was absolute, sheer, utter chaos.
The surviving British soldiers leave the city and march back to their ships. But was the tornado the extra weapon that saved Washington? And what if it hadn't spun up at just the right time?
There were some Washingtonians who saw this storm as providential, that this was a way of saving the Americans from their enemies, and it had the effect of putting out most of the fires. So this was a tremendous event that played a role in American history.
You think about how weather truly changed history. If that tornado hadn't come at that moment, Washington, D.C. may not even be the capital of the United States.
Our countdown has just begun. Still 80 more incredible weather moments yet to uncover.